If you have a hard time with boundaries, how might your life be different if you could say no as easily as a joyful yes? I'm Love Coach Mariya, and for over a decade now, I've been encouraging folks to empower their compassion so it's big enough for ourselves as well as others, and so our boundaries can become healthier than ever. You're listening to Empower Your Compassion, and on this show, we'll be unlocking transformative insights to help you reconnect to your true yes, so you can say no from that more expansive energy and get more of what you want in your relationships and your life without sacrificing your compassion. Are you ready for more love? Let's grow. Hello, lovelies. Thank you for tuning in. I'm really excited to share with you my guest today. Her name is Safia Sattaur, and she's a business and marketing coach who helps women entrepreneurs escape survival mode and build profitable, freedom-first businesses. With over a decade of experience working across a variety of different niches, she helps female founders create marketing and sales ecosystems that allow them to scale sustainably without being tied to their businesses 24/7. I'm also proud to say that she is someone I have engaged to help me do something similar. And I'm delighted to have her on the show because boundaries are just as important in business as they are in any other relationship. So please join me in welcoming Safia to the show. Welcome, Safia. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Mariya. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation as well. As you know, I love talking about boundaries and how healthy boundaries can actually really improve our lives, our relationships, our businesses even. And with that being your area of expertise, I'm just going to start off by asking you, how do you find the kind of the subject of boundaries impacting the clients that you work with in their businesses?
Oh my gosh, it's so interwoven. Like business is always like an extension of our life, right? Especially as a business owner specifically. Even if you're working a 9 to 5 or you're a corporate professional, boundaries are always a part of our lives, and business is no different. In fact, as an entrepreneur, especially as even if you're a solopreneur, you're by yourself, you don't have a team yet. I feel like that's where it sometimes presents itself, maybe not the most, but it definitely presents itself, right? Like dealing with clients, dealing with vendors, even personal boundaries, and how you set the time for yourself to stay disciplined in what you commit to, even in the way you establish your own boundaries around how you want to show up as an entrepreneur, as a company, as a brand. So I feel like you rub up against it so much, and especially because entrepreneurship can be kind of isolating. It could be a little lonely, especially if you're not with a partner that understands it, or you don't have a team around you or a circle of friends that are also entrepreneurs. It could be very isolating. And so it's easy for a girlfriend to call, a parent to call, a partner to call and be like, hey, let's go do X, Y, or Z, or can you go take a trip here? But you have a project at work, or you have a deadline, or you have something that you really want to accomplish in your business. And they may not necessarily get that because they clock in, clock out, or they live a different lifestyle. And I find some clients, especially in the beginning stages of their business, right? Like it's hard to establish that boundary of, hey, listen, this is important. I've got to get this done, because they don't want to hurt feelings, or they don't want to come off rude, or they don't also want to feel like, oh, I'm just being self-centered and selfish. I'm only thinking about my business, right? And so you definitely rub up on it so much as a business owner.
I could see it going both ways too. Like on
Yeah,
the one hand, you've got to be boundaried with your friends so that you're prioritizing your business. But at the same time, you also have to be boundaried to not like, sometimes we want to go play more, and
yeah,
we have to
yeah,
kind of have boundaries with ourselves too and be
yeah,
like, hey, I got to
absolutely.
prioritize this business. Um, and then we can also get really sucked in and forget that like we need human connection too. Like we can almost become maybe over boundaried and like, so I feel like one of the hardest things I think in solopreneurship is that sort of self-discipline where like you are the only one accountable to yourself in terms of
Mm-hmm,
like kind of
mm-hmm,
setting business hours, so to speak. Or maybe
mm-hmm.
flex is better for you, but like having some sort of structure, which is what boundaries provide, right?
Right.
Having some sort of structure in terms of something that supports a balance where you are giving enough of your resources to the business to nourish it, and also
Right.
giving enough of your resources towards your relationships, which in turn nourish you. So,
Yeah. And even to add to that, I would even add that you have to have that boundaries with the business of itself. Because what I mean by that is I've seen this happen over and over again with clients, and it's even happened in my own business, which is you sort of tend to make the business everything, right? And that dynamic that's established between the business fulfilling all of the buckets of your life, because especially when you're passionate about what you do, especially when you have a business that's growing and evolving and you've got clients and you've got all these moving parts, and then the healthy boundaries becomes, and I see this a lot with my unmarried clients where, oh, I'm not dating anybody right now, or I'm not in a partnership right now. And so now the business becomes the everything because that's what they pour everything into. And so the boundaries also have to be there with, where does the business cut off and where do I allow myself to be a full whole person outside of it? Right. So I think that's also an area that we don't talk enough about. We talk a lot about the external and our time and our, like our distractions and things like that. But then it's very easy to become so attached to the business because the business is rewarding and the business like fills my creative juices and the business provides the money and I've got to, and so it's very easy to fall into that trap of just making like everything circulates about around the business. And when you're not in the business, you're thinking about the business. Right. And so I think that's also really important part when it comes to boundaries there.
yeah, I think, ultimately, I have always felt like balance is a really important like element to life, and I think
Yeah.
boundaries are really good at supporting balance. And
Mm-hmm.
speaking to exactly what you were just talking about, for my listeners, just a little insider info. I'm working with Safia. I've hired her to help me with my business, and she's giving me all kinds of great ideas, and I call it homework. She gives me sort
Yep.
of like things to do and work on, and it has been hard for me not to. Like, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I spent about 40 hours over 3
Girl,
days.
I know. I'm getting your messages and I'm like, she should be sleeping. Why is she still up? So yeah, that was something I meant to bring up on our next call together.
I will also say I'm a night owl. And on a side note regarding that as well, I find that a lot of self-proclaimed night owls are actually just insomniacs, but I sleep great.
Mm,
I just sleep on a later schedule.
okay. Good to
Uh,
know. Okay.
yeah, yeah. Um, but I am also willing to, I ran myself a little bit ragged, but I enjoyed it. Like, it's like I
Yeah.
get kind of
Yeah.
frantic in this thing, and I knew that it would be a short-term thing. And I actually
Yeah.
have a vacation coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm like
Yeah.
not gonna work during this like week and a half that I'm giving myself. So
Yeah. And
that's
I
sort of
think
my
that's
balance.
such a great example of that boundary, right? It's like right now in this season, I am available for, like I've explained to this to you as well. My my foundational primary like key definition of boundaries is basically what are you available for and what are you not? And having having a lot of clarity around that, right? When it comes to business, when it comes to clients, when it comes to personal relationships, everything. And so I think that's such a beautiful example of that because you in this season, we're working on a specific project for you right now, right? And we know that you are going away next week. You're going to be offline for a period of time. And so, yes, it might require a little bit more work. Yes, it might require a little bit more like distraction free. I can't go here. I can't do this. I can't do that. But you've committed to completing this project before you leave so that you can unplug and be completely disconnected and enjoy that. And that is such a beautiful example of how you set that boundary with yourself and not making yourself feel shame or guilt or wrong for working too much or not sleeping enough or like overthinking or whatever the case may be, or when you get there feeling guilt, oh my god, I should be working, or oh my god, this project is like whatever the case may be. And I think that is such a beautiful example of how you've just articulated that. Now you said that because when you get to go and enjoy yourself and then come back to your business replenished and re-energized and ready to like take the project we've been working on and put it out into the world, it's going to be the best energy that's going to come from that. And so I think that's such a perfect example of that.
I think it's also really important to like, you know, be the change you want to see in the world type of thing,
Yeah,
or even like be the energy you want to invite in your life. And
absolutely. Yeah.
I've learned from past mistakes that if you try and create a business from hustle, you're going to have
Hmm.
a business that requires you to hustle. And that
A
I'm not for
thousand
that.
percent.
Some people like
Yeah.
that. I am not here for that. So,
Yeah. I mean, I just did a video on this not too long ago. How you build your business is how it's going to expect you to maintain it. So if you build your business on that kind of hustle and force and survival, that is what is going to be expected of you to maintain it, right?
mhm,
And so I
mhm.
think, yeah, absolutely.
I have a little, I like having little touchstones to,
Mhm.
it's sort of like mantras or, you know, other sorts of things to just remember to come back to.
Mhm.
And recently in this phase of my business, I'm trying to find that balance, right? This is kind of my like my first attempt at the non-hustle. And so I have to keep,
Yeah,
because it's such a like habit, I have to keep pulling myself back to like, no, it's okay. Like I want to live into the lifestyle I'm trying to create for myself.
yeah.
And the little touchstone that has been really helpful lately is a memory from when I was a kid. My dad took me and a friend of mine out camping, and one of the things we did was gold panning. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and so we were gold panning in the creek. And I had done it with him before, but my friend hadn't yet, and she was really excited about it. And I was meanwhile distracted by this quartz vein in the like cliff.
Okay.
And so I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And I'm pulling these like quartz crystals. I mean, tiny, it was a small vein, but like pulling these tiny little crystals out of this. And my dad kept hassling me. He's like, come help, you know, because I'm supposed to be, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
And I kept farting around with these crystals. And then like a week later, he apologized. He was like, I'm sorry I gave you a hard time about those crystals. Turns out they're actually more valuable because what we were mining was fool's gold.
Wow.
So like coming back to that memory is just like a reminder of like finding what feels good and doing what feels good to you and trusting your alignment
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
okay and you don't have to like work harder type of thing.
Hmm.
So,
And I think like just the past few weeks we've been working together, I've seen that with you. I think I mentioned that very recently, which is, I'll give you feedback on something or I'll provide insight on something and you'll take that and you're like, yeah, but you know what? Like this part makes sense, but it feels more real or connected for me to do that. And I love that. It's
mhm,
very easy when you are in a relationship and there's someone you could it perceives hold more expertise or knowledge or power or financial security or whatever that scenario might be. It's easy for you to feel like that person is the authority and to then kind of stifle your own feelings, second guess your own trust, think that, maybe they know better than me, right? And one of the things that I'm always here for, and you've heard me say this in my messages to you, is like, I love that. I want you to lean into your self trust. I want you, I'm not the expert at boundaries here. You are. And so, as working with you, it's like, I want you to see me as a sounding board versus the know all of everything because I don't, right? And so I think you've exemplified that beautifully here as well. And for your listeners, like learning about boundaries in your personal life in whatever scenario, I think you've led such a great example of that. And I think that that is an area where most women especially struggle because again of that same like that authority figure, whether it's a parent, whether it's a partner, whether it's a boss, whatever it is, and then we make ourselves small or we shrink our own thoughts, feelings, emotions, whatever. We shrink our own even actions to accommodate what we perceive has more authority, more value, more worth, more insight, more X, Y, or Z, whatever you want to label it as, than us. And I think
mhm.
that more women need to be leaning into that self trust and leading from that place too. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And just to build on that, in my experience, part of the reason that we sort of like acquiesce, you know, or like
Yeah.
submit to like other outside authorities or other people is because we perceive some sort of reliance that we have on them, like we need their expertise or
Mm-hmm.
we need their guidance or financial support, or in a lot of cases, really it's approval.
Yeah,
Um,
approval.
and
Approval, love.
you're
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And we have this, but all of that is this like external orientation, like our source of safety and security is external. So we're always
Mm-hmm.
looking to others to help us feel safe and secure. And, ideally in a picture perfect, healthy upbringing, like you go through a developmental process of shifting from literally being super dependent on your
Right.
caregivers to like
Right.
learning healthy independence and interdependence. But when that gets a little bit disrupted, we hold on to that external orientation. And so the process of like developing healthy boundaries is really about learning how to root your safety and security within yourself. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to kind of go through that healing in order to feel brave enough for me to tell you're the expert on marketing. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to follow that piece
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
also the expert on what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it can be really scary to the nervous system to do or say something that you feel like might not even just push the other person away, but like invite disapproval or
Right. Right.
disappointment or that type
Mm-hmm.
of thing where like
Mm-hmm.
it triggers like a deeper abandonment wound too, like, oh, if I offend her, maybe she'll
Yes.
leave me, or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then I'm
Yeah.
a horrible person and I'm gonna like
Of
be left
course.
alone to
And the
die in
trickle
the
down
cold.
effect of all of the, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
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 So it's really helpful to go through that healing process so that we can root our security within ourselves. And then I feel like honestly, I talk a lot about boundaries, but I don't like my goal is not really to teach people boundaries like say no. My goal is to like teach people how to root their security within so that boundaries then become like a natural outflow of that.
Absolutely.
Hey friends, real quick, in case you're busy, which you probably are if you have a hard time with boundaries, I just wanted to make sure you know that you can go to boundariesthatfeelgood.com and download a free resource for making boundaries easier without sacrificing your compassion. Again, that's boundariesthatfeelgood.com. Okay, let's get back to the show.
And the truth is like, I mean, I don't know about you and your upbringing, your culture. That was never something that we learned. It's never something that was an intentional part of parenting or, we certainly don't learn it in school, right? So it is something that I feel for most people through life experiences, you realize, wait, something's off here. And even if you don't know what the specific term or definition is, you go seeking, right? And oftentimes when you distill things down, oh, it's this thing called boundaries. What is that? Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so yeah, we just don't learn it. And as a parent, as a mom of three, having had these tools, this knowledge, these resources available to me now, it's something that I actively try to teach my children so that they have that within them from an early age. Does it always stick? No, but they're also kids, right? But yeah, but I mean, it's about breaking those cycles too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, when those patterns stick with us, well, to be clear, when those like less healthy patterns stick with
Yes.
us,
Yeah.
into adulthood, bringing it back to business, I think one of the other big areas that it shows up a lot is with our clients.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
we can really, I've seen so many, generally solopreneurs, usually women, who are frazzled because they're saying yes to all of their clients and all of their clients' demands. And it's like, you got to be a little bit more boundaried. And I get it. It's so hard too, because not only are you incorporating that layer of like primal attachment wound stuff,
Hmm.
but you're also adding the financial aspect, which is
Yeah.
another piece of survival too. And it gets really like messy in there to have that.
Right. And I would also add to that potential clients, like saying
Yes.
yes to clients that I don't, that's not really my ideal client, or that's not really somebody I really want to work with, or that's not the scope of work I really want to be doing. But hey, you know what? This could be a great fit. It's a paycheck, or it's a client, or it's whatever the case may be. And saying yes when it's a no. So yeah.
So, because it can be so challenging to heal into boundaries and get over all of these, faulty coping mechanisms that we have where we're constantly abandoning ourselves to like keep
Right.
people in our lives or our business or in approval of us, I've actually developed something I call the Gates method. And the reason I named it that is because I feel like most people's boundaries tend to show up as either flimsy fences or spiked walls.
Oh,
Uh,
I love that. I love that. What does
Thank
that
you.
mean?
So, flimsy fences are when we say yes too often, and spiked walls are when we say no too harshly. Oftentimes, people
Mm.
get caught in this cycle of like saying yes to everything, and then they're completely depleted, and then they're like, no. And someone's like, dude, you could have just said no. Like, it's okay.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love that because it's like swinging from one end of the pendulum to the next, right? That's
Yes.
perfect. Yeah.
Yes. So the alternative that I teach my clients, I call those selective gates. And so selective
Mm.
gates is where we are essentially like drawing our boundaries around behaviors instead of people. And that way it's a lot easier, I think, as recovering people pleasers when we can find ways to be boundaried and still stay in connection with other people.
Yeah.
And so by drawing our boundaries around behaviors instead of people, we're effectively giving them the keys to accessing us through the gates that we've installed. So we're
Mm.
not having to like slam the door in anybody's face or, whatever. It's just like, hey, if you can come around over here, right? Like this is how we can engage.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
if you can't, okay, but it'll still be here. The door's open if you
Right,
can
right,
make
right,
your way
right.
over to it.
Yeah, and I think that's just such a clean, simple way to explain that to people in a sense that we all can relate to that. We can all relate to those scenarios where it's like it's either one extreme or the other. It's like over pleasing, overcompensating, people pleasing just because you don't want to hurt feelings or come across rude, et cetera, filling the blanks, or too harsh, too like abrasive, too, what did you call it? Spiky walls,
Walls. Mhm.
or like just being a bitch, right? And it's like there has to be this middle ground where you can experience what you want, accomplish what you want, whether it is more time to do X, Y, or Z, whether it is the ability to articulate and explain what you want to feel or do or have in a relationship or in a business or whatever have you, without having to swing from one end of the pendulum to the next or live on either one of those sides, thinking that that is the healthiest way, which it is not, right? So I like that
Absolutely.
a lot, you know.
I feel like the reason too that we end up in those extremes is because we're operating on this misconception that boundaries are mean. And so if we think that they're
Mm,
mean, we're going to avoid them and be nice, right? With our flimsy
yeah.
fences. Or then it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And, we don't want to be mean. We don't want to be mean. And then we're like, oh, now I have to be mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you realize that there's actually a third option, like boundaries don't have to be mean, then it's like, oh, wait, what?
Right. I think that is so true. I think for most people who are not already somewhat experienced or have knowledge around this from a healthy perspective, I do agree. I do think like that initial connotation of it is like it's mean. It is like she, like, it's like you think, oh, you have to do that, so then automatically I have to stiffen. I have to be harder. I have to be colder. I have to be more held back. I have to be more enclosed. I can't be, and I think especially for women, I can't be soft. I can't be who I am. I can't lead from my femininity or whatever the case may be, because there is not that connotation of it being something where when you do have that healthy boundary in place, it is when you actually get to become the soft, the feminine, all of those other things.
Yes. I think also a lot of where that pattern comes from too is that our culture has thoroughly normalized enmeshed codependence. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we grow up on this idea that it's so romantic when I can't tell where you end and I begin. And I'm like, that's no
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. That's not healthy. That's
Mm-hmm.
enmeshment. And so from that like worldview, from that frame of this idea that we're supposed to like become one,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, it's highlighted in romantic relationships, but it's, the subtext is kind of to everything. I mean, family is really big about it too. Like you're supposed to be
Yeah.
part of the family. Like it's all supposed to be
Right.
this
Right.
oneness. And so boundaries are inherently individuating. And so
Mm-hmm.
from that worldview, though, of enmeshed codependence being right, boundaries almost feel violent because now you're like
Mm,
ripping us apart, and like, how can you have needs that are separate from mine, and that's where this idea that boundaries are mean comes from.
so true.
And it's
What?
all this like misplaced responsibility too, that like I'm responsible for your feelings. Um, you're not, but I am. And I'm not responsible for my feelings either, but you are, you made me feel this
Mm,
way. And so there's all of that misplaced responsibility that just feeds into this really dysfunctional dynamic of flimsy fences and spiked walls.
yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that.
Again, when we're coming from that sort of worldview and subconscious programming about this enmeshment and misplaced responsibility
Hmm.
and this external orientation where we're relying on other people so we can feel safe and secure, getting to healthy boundaries is challenging. Like if you try and just go from that to being boundary, that's typically where the spiked walls come from,
Right,
right?
right. Hmm.
So instead, in order to learn how to like install those selective gates, I developed, as I mentioned before, the Gates method, and it's an acronym, and it stands for ground in your body and your values. So,
Hmm.
learning how to be embodied and get in touch with your nervous system and all of that jazz is really, really important. And also, just doing a little inventory of like your core values, like what are your North Stars? And it can be so quick and easy to just be a reflexive yes when somebody asks you for something before you've even processed what the request is. It's like you're a yes to the requester. Like, hey, can you? Yeah, sure. What do you need? And so we got to take that moment to ground, hear them out, feel into whether that's in alignment with your values. And then the second part is also assess your capacity and your true yes. So like, if this is aligned with my values, do I actually have the capacity for it? Like, can I really make this happen? And is it something that like I'm a true yes to? Like maybe I want to prioritize and say no to something else so that I can prioritize this because I am a true yes to it.
Yeah.
But if I'm not, it's so helpful to know what your yes is when you deliver a no, because there's always a yes behind a no. So
Mm,
if my go-to example that I always use is if someone invites me out on a Sunday night and I'm already in PJ mode, I'm I want to stay in. That's like I'm a yes to staying in. But if I'm not connected to that, my no might be overly apologetic. Oh, I'm so, so sorry. And then you're more likely to get
yeah.
your arm twisted, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you'll be overly abrasive and you're gonna be like, "Ah, no, it's a Sunday night. God, why are you even asking me?"
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Good
But
point. Yeah.
instead, if you're like connected to that yes that you want to stay in, your energy is more expansive and you're like, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that can be a great way to, as I like to say, learning how to say no as easily as a joyful yes is about having that connection to your yes.
And I like that so much because that connection to the yes comes from the G, which is being grounded in the values, right? Like without that first step, it's hard to know what you're connected to. And that's when the no's become the default because you're available for everything, right? So I love that you created this process where that is the number one step. One of the big things that I so my one of my methods is the 4C method. And my methods for marketing and for business starts with my first C is connection. Connection, creation, conversion, continuation, right? And they all lead with each other, but it starts with connection as well. And when I think about connection, it's also threefold and it's threefold in the sense that you first connect to yourself, you connect to your audience, you connect to your business, but it always starts with the self. It always, always starts with the self. I think in business, especially when people are trying to start or they're trying to grow or they're trying to hit another milestone, it's so easy to think about what does the audience want? What does the market demand? What is the latest, trendiest thing? How can I create the offer that's like, the sexiest offer, whatever the case may be. And so it's like, I've seen it happen too often where it's like, that's the first line of thinking versus starting with self, which is what do I want to offer? What am I truly passionate about? Right. And yes, there is a definite need to make sure that there is viability in the marketplace, that it speaks to the audience. Like obviously, all those things are paramount in order for it to work and be successful, but it has to start with self first. I was just talking to a client the other day, and the business is growing beautifully, and there's so many moving parts right now, but she and the partner are feeling like the business partner, they're not necessarily disconnected, but they have not really reconnected in terms of the business goals, and just because there's so many moving parts. And as a byproduct of that, there's been some dysfunction, there's been some, little things that have led to bigger things in the business. I'm not trying to say too much. And so after having the session with both of them, my first homework for them was they have to reconnect. As business partners, you have to reconnect, and you have to figure out, are you guys still on the same page? Do you want to grow the business? If it's a yes, is the way you want to grow it the same? So I think that connection piece is so important in all facets of life. And it's part of why it's like the foundation of everything I do with my clients, right? And even within my own business, every time I'm feeling a little wishy-washy or something, or a little whatever the case may be, or taking it like things aren't flowing the way you have to come back to self. You have to come back to connecting to yourself, because within us is where the answers are, right? And if you struggle to find the answers, then it's important to align yourself and partner yourself with someone who can help you get those answers and bring those answers out, not necessarily give you the answers, but help you find the answers within. So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Y'all, I just have to emphasize that a little bit further. Partner yourself with someone who can help you find answers. Safia is an amazing business coach. I can help you with boundaries. If you have other challenges or don't necessarily resonate with either of us, there are tons of coaches out there, and it really, really is an incredible gift to give to yourself and whatever it is you're working towards. All right, let's get back to the conversation. So the T then in the Gates method, after we've grounded and assessed, is trusting in the other's ability to manage. And that can mean a couple different things for us, especially again, as like recovering people pleasers. Maybe it's that someone asks you for something last minute and you're like, oh man, like it feels like that urgency feels like a stronger need. And so you're feeling like that tension and that you've got to say yes, but you can't because, it's last minute and you already had other plans.
Yeah.
That happened to me one time. And when I like so uncomfortably said no, she was like, no worries. And she was fine. She had other people, she had other resources. So like just trusting that like you're not their only option,
right.
is a big thing. And it can be harder when they actually think you are their only option.
Right.
But still trusting that they have the ability to problem solve, they can find other options, kind of having that belief in their like divine sovereign power, right, is kind of a big, beautiful thing to give to people instead of like jumping in to rescue them.
Yeah.
So the other sort of dynamic too is like trusting that they can recover from any disappointment in your no, because that's another thing we try and rescue people from too, is like not having to feel that discomfort. And that can be extra challenging when you have a relationship with this person that has proven to you that they don't handle disappointment very well and that they're going to try and twist your arm or guilt trip you, etc. So to some extent, it's also a little bit about trusting that you're going to be okay, even if they're disappointed.
Yeah.
But once you take that moment to trust, then the E is express your no without disconnecting. And my favorite way to do that is to follow a no with a yes. Like, oh, I'm not available for that, but I am available for this. Like my friend that needed help at the last minute, she was moving that day. And I was like, I can't, but I can help you unpack this weekend. And it doesn't always have to be apples to apples. Sometimes it can just be like, I can't, but I really appreciate you. Just again, with that connection, just maintaining a little bit of connection is possible. Like it's an option. And I think that sometimes we end up in those spiked walls too, is because we're already so tight and feeling, shame or like, we feel like we have to be guarded to say no because like we have to be mean, but you don't.
Right.
Doesn't have to be mean.
No, not at
So
all.
then the S is steward your precious resources. And for me, coming to terms with the fact that I have limitations was hard
Hmm.
because there's that whole like scarcity versus abundance mindset
Right.
stuff out there.
Hmm.
I felt like I was supposed to be abundant. I should be able to say yes to everything. And it was like, your resources are finite. There are only 24 hours in a day. You only have so much energy or attention to give. And at first, like that felt like a weakness or that I was limiting myself. But then I remembered that diamonds and gold are valuable because
So
they are
limited.
finite.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so
Exactly.
that helped me like step into this position of honor, seeing myself as a noble steward of
Yeah.
my precious resources. And so what that means in implementation though is stewardship is like the oxygen mask rule,
Hmm.
remembering that you've got to take care of yourself first in service of your big beautiful heart that wants to take care of other people. If
Right.
you're going to
Right.
show up for them, for your business, for anyone, any people or projects you care about, got to make sure that you're staying resourced. And
Amazing.
that also means that when you recognize what self-care means for you, that you have to follow through on that even when it's uncomfortable. And so, if someone really, really wants you to do this thing, but you've already established that these are your boundaries, you've got to stick to them consistently.
Agreed. Agreed. Perfectly said.
Mhm. So I think also with business, we can just tie that back to what we were saying before about having that balance and those boundaries and being a steward even of your business means stewarding your finite resources, which, typically is money, but time, attention, and like
Absolutely.
learning how
Yeah.
to be strategic with your yes is so much more valuable to your business than trying to be available to everything
A
and everything.
1000%. 1,000%. Agreed completely.
Well, thank you again so much. It was a delight to have you, and it's a delight to be working with you too. So,
Yeah,
for
I
my
love it.
listeners, if anyone else would like to learn more about you, where is a great place for them to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first place you can connect with me obviously is on Instagram. You can send me a DM on there. I'm super approachable. Just hit me up, send me a DM. I'll respond. You can also find me on my website under construction, but it should be back up soon. And if you are interested in sort of learning a little bit more about my process, I also have a private podcast series. It's a very limited private podcast series. It's only 6 episodes, but we walk through, some of these boundaries issues come up in there as well. But I walk you through basically how to build your business in a way where you can actually disconnect and have a life outside of your business, get out of survival mode. So it's called the Build to Amplify private podcast series. You can, I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes, but that's available completely free as well. So
That's so gracious of you. Thank you for that.
you're welcome.
And thank you again for being on my show. It's a delight to have you, and we'll talk soon about my business.
Yes, thank you so much. Loved having this conversation, and we'll talk soon.
Great. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you would like to learn more about Safia, please see her information in the show notes. And if you would like to learn more about the Gates method or working with me, you can go to a few different options. I'll have them in the show notes as well. Thegatesmethod.com has just the sort of overview that I mentioned. If you go to boundariesthatfeelgood.com, you can download a free guide that unpacks the Gates method and provides lots of other insights and resources as well, all for free. Please avail yourself of it, especially if you are navigating any difficult relationships. And particularly with us being in the midst of the holiday season, if that's something challenging for you, there are a few things that make the holidays better than healthy boundaries. So please go ahead and grab a spot on my calendar for a free, no charge, no strings call. And you can go to explorelovingboundaries.com to set that up. And while you're here, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And if you're on Instagram, you can find me there too at Love Coach Mariya. Wherever you're at on your journey, I send you so much love and courage. Namaste.